Hey guys, welcome to today's Vehicle Visionary. Today I've borrowed this 2021 Polar White Mercedes-Benz CLA 250 from my friends at Mercedes-Benz of Shreveport. And while this is not an AMG model, it seems to be bursting at the seams to at least convince you that it wants to be an AMG model. And what do I mean by that? The way it drives, the way it handles. When you drive in sport mode out of the multiple available driving modes, it even has a little bit better sound. Not exactly as an AMG would, but it sounds really impressive. And I have to say, the handling is what really does it for me. This is a front-wheel drive model, and of course you can get the AMG models a lot more fun to drive. I did a very similar model to this, the AMG CLA 35 last year, and that is an interesting thing. If you're looking for something that you can drive as a 4MATIC, but then you turn stability control off and it's rear-wheel drive, you can actually drift that car. It makes it a little bit easier to track the car if you want to. Mercedes-Benz has definitely given a lot of great options. So let's start our tour. We're going to do our typical exterior, interior tour, do a quick test drive, and see if this is the ultimate subcompact executive sedan. When it comes to the overall lines of the CLA 250, you definitely have a car that looks very sporty and very racy, and rightfully so based on the way it drives. You'll notice the LED headlights, LED tail lights. You've got the diamond block grille here. Of course, that nice large Mercedes-Benz logo right there in the center of the grille. And one thing that I know even I have said in the past until I realized what was really going on here. Down here on the lower portion of the bumper, those look like faux vents. And a lot of people might have said, and I believe I've said it in previous videos myself, why couldn't Mercedes-Benz make those functional? They are functional. Let me show you exactly what I mean by that. While there's no holes in what you see here is basically what appears to be a faux vent, the air actually is going to hit this area of the lower portion of the front end and going to be directed into an air curtain on the outside of the fender on each side. That's going to improve drag, that's going to help improve gas mileage, and overall be beneficial with the car. Kind of an interesting little thing that you might not notice unless you get down there and actually look, or if you look on the side of the fender here and you see that back side of the air curtain and you're wondering what exactly is that for? Well, now you know. So those aren't actually faux vents. They are functional, just not the way you might expect. Here under the hood is the 2-liter inline turbocharged 4-cylinder. That is a single turbo, it's not bi-turbo. 221 horsepower, 258 pound-feet of torque, 7-speed automatic transmission. Of course, you're going to have, like I said, those multiple driving modes, including sport and individual. So if you want to go in and change the suspension and the steering and the way the engine and transmission work, but have each one maybe be a little bit different, one be in sport mode, one be in comfort, whatever you desire, well, you can do that. Nice options there. A lot of customization for the individual. And of course, gas mileage, which I would have too much fun in this car to get close to these numbers. 25 miles per gallon city estimated, 35 out on the highway. I don't think I'd ever get close to that. And if you're a keen-eyed observer, yes, one of my favorite features right here, you got the strut to help raise the hood. You don't have two struts here. Actually, just the one single strut does more than enough to handle that. I must say I'm very impressed. Let's talk a little bit about safety features, as there are multiple safety features. Obviously, Mercedes-Benz never shy in that area in this day and age. I will give you a partial list on the screen, but as always, there is a complete list via the link to the Mercedes-Benz of Shreveport website for this exact model if you want to know a little bit more. That way, we don't keep the video too long. Try and keep it to a reasonable amount of time. Of course, this model has the 18-inch AMG 5-spoke wheels. Very sporty look. I do like that a lot. The panoramic roof up there, that panoramic sunroof, everything just flows over the rear here. Would be nice to see a little bit more of a spoiler, but this model doesn't have that. Not necessarily a big deal. Now, if you ever come back here, maybe somebody said, hey, would you go get something out of the trunk of my CLA 250? They didn't give you the remote, or maybe they did, and you're hunting around for the button to open the trunk. It's not down here, and if you don't use the remote to do so, which there is an option on here for doing that, all you got to do is push in on the top of that logo right there, and it's automatically going to raise up. Makes everything very easy. I'll give you the cargo numbers on the screen, and if you want to lower those rear seats to increase your cargo space a little bit more, again, don't go looking around in the wrong place for the release to do that. The latches are not on the interior, they're actually on the inside of the trunk on each side right here. You just pull back on those, and then you can go in and lower the rear seats. Speaking of the rear seats, let's hop into the back seat and see what your rear seat passengers are going to find there. When it comes to hopping into the interior, whether it's the front seat or the back seat, the very first thing you're going to notice is going to likely be those frameless windows. There's no door frame around the window itself, and honestly, I like that look. It just looks clean, it looks appropriate for this style of vehicle. Tell me in the comments what your thoughts are on those frameless windows. Do you like it? Do you not like it? Or do you just not have an opinion at all? Doesn't make any difference. I'm always curious to know what you have to say. As far as the interior goes, this is black MB text with Dynamica. You're going to notice that red contrast stitching throughout. Gives it a nice racy look, kind of that AMG type of appearance. The front seats definitely give that as well. And while there's not an overload of space here in the back seat, well, it's a subcompact executive sedan. It's not a full-size sedan. It's not really meant to be a vehicle that you haul a lot of people around in. There is enough room back here for a short trip back and forth to wherever. Maybe not a long road trip for rear seat passengers, but still, it'll definitely do the job to haul a couple of people around back here if the need arises. And there is one USB port down here on the back of the console. Of course, a couple of air conditioning vents so that your rear seat passengers can stay nice and comfortable. With a cabin of this size, I don't think that's going to be a problem. That is, unless people start disagreeing with the temperature, then it could get rather interesting because you don't have tri-zone climate control. And as I reach up and hit the push button start, you've got keyless ignition, and I like the fact that if you don't like that stop start feature that activates every time you come to a complete stop. And for those who may not know, here's something to think about, just a little bit of a side note on that feature. The button to turn that on or off is right underneath your start stop button right here. I like that. You can turn that off right there if you want to, or you can leave it on. But it does wear out your vehicle's starter a whole lot faster than it would otherwise. Just something to consider, and some people may say, well, it's okay, I'm not even worried about it. And that's okay, no big deal, just something to consider. And of course, you're going to have the elegance of a Mercedes-Benz in so many ways here. And while this is by no means a top trim level, it still has that Mercedes-Benz feel and experience to a very large degree. You've got power seats for the driver and passenger. And of course, both are heated here, which is something we don't need today, as it is 75 degrees here in Northwest Louisiana on March 3rd. Your controls right here for adjusting the seats. Same thing on the driver and passenger side. Also, seat memory is there if you need that and want to take advantage of it. Very comfortable leather wrapped steering wheel, those steering wheel mounted controls, and the paddle shifters back there if you want to drive in sport mode and shift manually. Kind of have that spirited driving experience that I really enjoy. And of course, you've got your two screens here, the MBUX system, and multiple screens that you can change depending on what you want to do with the dashboard. If you want a particular look, well, you can have that depending on what your preferences are. And a lot of customization available there as far as what you can do. You can even display navigation on the dashboard for the driver. That way the driver's not having to look over to the center screen on the right-hand side. Easier to keep their eyes more focused ahead that way. Everything, again, customizable. You can change everything on the screen here on the left-hand side from the steering wheel mounted controls on the left side, same at the right for the screen on the right-hand side. And one thing that is an absolute favorite of mine here, 64 different ambient lighting colors to choose from, and a lot of different options as to how that actually works. Giving you a bit of an illustration of that on the screen right now. I just really like the customization that Mercedes-Benz has built into these vehicles. Now earlier I mentioned this is not tri-zone climate control, but it is dual zone climate control. You can sync the two together here in the front, and of course that would go with the rear as well if you want to. You got more connectivity here in the front seat, even another USB port inside of the console when you open those bomb bay doors, and drink holders right here, another USB port there as well in front of those. Now this doesn't have a wireless charging, but if it did, it would be in front of the drink holder area. Now, if you're new to the MBUX system, and maybe you're stepping out of an older model that didn't have a touch screen, this is a touch screen, by the way, and it's also interactive. You can ask Mercedes a lot of questions, and if you're not sure what to ask, you can actually ask her. I won't say her name right now because she might answer when I don't want her to. You can say, so-and-so, what questions can I ask you? And you'll get a pretty lengthy answer on that as to what you can ask. So it's very detailed. I really like that. You can even ask her to change the ambient lighting color, change the temperature. You can say I'm cold or I'm warm or whatever. You can do all of that. But if you're used to that older system from the previous generation, you still have the trackpad down here. A lot of different features here. You can, of course, scroll through your multiple driving modes. Let me tell you what those are, of course. Starting at the bottom, you've got Eco, Comfort, Sport, and Individual, like I explained earlier, where you can go in and customize every different aspect of driving. If you want one to be comfort and one to be sport, whatever you want, you've got that option right now, right there, I should say. And as far as space goes, well, if you had a few Vehicle Visionary t-shirts, I think you could only fit 2. You might be able to squeeze 3 into the center console here, but a few more would fit into the glove box up there. But my favorite aspect is definitely driving this car down the road. It does have those aluminum sport pedals down there. As you can see, a lot of fun to drive. Let's get out on the road and do just that. Okay, we're gonna start off with a little launch here and just see what happens. No special launch mode or anything like that, but here we go. Spun the tires in first, spun the tires a little bit in second gear. There we go at 65 miles an hour right there. Wow, that was rather impressive, to say the least. You wouldn't think that the amount of horsepower that this 2-liter 4-cylinder is putting out would do that, but it is a fairly light car, so it is possible to do things like that. That's quite fun. Now, one thing that I did earlier before I turned the camera on as I was leaving my filming location for today's video, I decided to put the car, I started off in sport mode, but decided to switch over to comfort mode. And I will say, I noticed quite a difference in how the CLA 250 was riding. So if you're looking for that more smooth driving experience, more comfortable ride, remember, you can go into individual configuration and change every aspect of the way the car drives, the way it rides, the way it responds to your touch. It just depends on what you want. But if you want that smooth ride, you can have that while still having the aggressive steering, taking as much advantage of the available horsepower as possible. Now we're just going to cruise through this corner. I'm not going to even take my foot off the gas pedal. We're just going to see how it does. Yep, doing exactly what I expected. I'm going to easily accelerate out of that corner. I could have done that a lot sooner. It definitely held the road nicely. Tell you what, I can't wait for Mercedes-Benz of Shreveport to get another AMG model in of the CLA. Those are a lot of fun to drive. We'll see what happens hopefully in the near future with that. And of course you do have the ability to shift with the shifter paddles if you want to feel more involved in the driving experience. It just kind of depends on what it is that you want and what your personal preferences are. Overall, I must say I'm very impressed. Everything here is quite a bit of fun. I'm gonna have to slow down here because we're coming up on a hill. I saw the cyclist up here, didn't want to change lanes before we crested that hill as I couldn't see what was coming. That's not how we want a viral video, that is a fact. But overall, as far as the driving experience goes, A+, that's for sure. 221 horsepower has probably never been more enjoyable. That's at least my opinion in the matter. So, is the CLA 250 the ultimate subcompact executive sedan? Well, I definitely believe it is a front runner. But I know that a lot of you are going to have varying answers, and I hope you'll share them down in the comments. But don't just say yes or no. Explain why you gave the answer you did, because I'm very curious to see what you have to say. Got to say a special thank you to my friends at Mercedes-Benz of Shreveport for loaning me this model for the day. And a thank you to each and every one of you for being kind enough to give me the opportunity to give you a vision for your next vehicle. I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Bye-bye.